Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope that you are enjoying the session so far, but we are not done yet. Really excited for this next panel session. Jeremy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Well, thanks everybody for attending this session. I've been looking forward to this for over a month now, and I jokingly said, but not jokingly, I wish this was a 3-hour podcast. We got 30 minutes. This is an absolute powerhouse group that we've pulled together. And so without wasting much time, wanted to jump in, do some quick introductions, and then jump into a very hot topic, something that we're all thinking about almost on a daily basis, and just what is next for modern sales. And so really excited to kick this off. Udi, you want to go ahead and kick off introductions for us?
Yeah, of course. I promised you I'd play with all the toys you gave me. Hey everyone, I'm Udi. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Gong, and today we have Justin from Drift joining us. You want to introduce yourself, Justin?
Yeah, thank you, Udi. Hi, everybody. I am Justin Kellerman, the VP of Revenue Marketing here at Drift. If you don't know, Drift is a conversational cloud, and we basically make it easy for your customer-facing teams to connect with their most important audiences through what I think is the best chat platform in the world. And I'm super thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Udi.
Amazing. Next, we have Jill from Stage 2 Capital. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Jill Rowley. I've actually spent 22 years in SaaS. I was in the first 100 employees at Salesforce, employee number 13 at Eloqua through the IPO and acquisition by Oracle. And then I spent 11 months at Marketo as we prepared for the acquisition by Adobe for $4.75 billion. So I am born SaaS and lead customer.
Amazing. There you have it.
Awesome. So let's jump in. Kind of first question to get things going. What would you say, and let's just go around the horn here, like what would you say some of the key challenges that sellers are facing today?
I'm happy to jump in. Yeah, happy to jump in. I think when we say today, we're literally talking about these last few months and what's likely coming ahead. It feels a little bit like previous crises, like at the beginning of COVID. Those of us who were around remember where everyone went into defensive mode and CFOs were clutching their wallets and scrutinizing every piece of spend. I think what's important for companies to do in situations like this, which we've done at Gong and has been very successful throughout COVID, and we've seen other companies do something similar, look at your product, your messaging, your pricing, and see if they still stand up to what customers are looking for now. So specific examples would be, can you roll out any features that are actually helping customers' productivity? Or in the days of COVID, it was all about remote work that everyone was switching to. So really understand what your customers are going through right now, because maybe your high-level messaging that was great 8 months ago is not going to fly now. So look at actual product features you could either repackage or relaunch that address what customers are looking for now. 2, we found that transitioning messaging to focus on things like productivity in times when customers are trying to do more with less will work better than messaging that's talking about we'll help you grow and hire twice as many people, when very few companies are actually doing that. And finally, pricing concessions are always welcome in stringent times like this. So if you could look at extended trials, adding additional seats, honoring old grandfathering prices, anything you can do to show a gesture of goodwill to help your customers get through this, they will be loyal and will likely stick with you. And I'll say one last thing. We found that even those who absolutely loved us but had to leave because their business was in the downturn, when we treated them well, they came back as soon as they could. It was 2, 3, 4 quarters later. As soon as their business was booming again, they came back to us because they remembered how we treated them.
Awesome. Justin, anything else to add there?
Yeah, I agree with everything Udi said. And I think if we're looking like close snapshot, I'll zoom out a little bit. And I think some of the macro things that have been happening is that the tech landscape has just gotten so crazy, crowded and competitive, and so much of it's redundant. And I think when, to Udi's exact point, like when you start to have similar feature sets, the way you talk about it has to change, and you have to transition from product marketing to more brand marketing. And I think that's something that B2B sales and marketing is only starting to get really good at, because they've been afraid of it for so long. I think like one or two reasons. One, I think ROI is hard to measure, and in the glory days of VC-backed tech, you didn't want to invest in something you couldn't measure back, right? And I think that conversation is changing in the boardroom a lot, which is great for us marketers. And then, basically forever, I think, not forever, but like lately, B2B marketers have had access to the same kind of data. And I think data is really the key here that we have not had access to before. B2C marketers have had tons and tons of great consumer data that we have not, and that's starting to change. So we're starting to be able to marry the data and technology that our B2C peers have been able to do forever. And so I think it's incumbent on us as sellers and marketers to use that to create really hyper personal experiences, because I think the conversations that B2C companies are having and B2B companies are the same, where it's we want to provide super personal experiences. And I think Instagram is like a micro example of that, where you think about something and 20 minutes later you're getting ads for it. And I think it used to be a creepy thing. B2B marketers, sellers didn't want to be creepy like that, but I think people now expect that kind of personalization. They want to feel like they're interacting with a friend, and they want, people want things to be easy. They want to know, they want their expectations met, and they want it to be done in a frictionless way.
Yeah, I'll weigh in. I agree with what Justin and Udi have said as well. And I think in terms of what we really need to do right now is get as close to the customer as we possibly can. And in terms of thinking through the lens of customer value, we're going to see companies scrutinizing their tech stacks. There's too much tech out there, and they're going to scrutinize the tech stack to see what the overlapping functionality is. And they're also going to see where systems are not connected. And when they're not connected, they're not generating as much value as they could if they're connected to, more of those urgent and important mission critical systems. And so I think we're going to see, and I know we're going to see, a whole lot more thinking around partner strategy and how do we look at not just if our customers are using our technology, but what else are they using and what are they getting value from? And what if we get closer to the other components in the tech stack and integrate those for more value? So we're going to see that. And then just following on to, we're competing for attention, and it's way harder to get attention today. And so differentiation, right? How are you different from what else is out there? And that's where I think a lot of the partnership thinking can come from, is if you can put more of the stack together, then that differentiates you from those who are going at it alone. So I think this is the year of the better together story.
Love that. Absolutely. And you mentioned a bit there, Jill, on like just the partner ecosystem and what's going on. Like what other trends are you seeing just in the investment world and the partner ecosystems that are taking place?
Yeah. So just today, Sarah Wang, she's a GP at Andreessen Horowitz, and a quote from her was, "Our best performing portfolio companies are the companies with partner-led strategies." And it's really day one, thinking about the existing ecosystem that is out there and where are you going to play in the ecosystem. And that's not just from a tech perspective, but also what is the ecosystem of communities where your customers are already learning and living. Where is their trust already that your customers have? Who do they trust already? And thinking more about community and customer-led from day one. Bessemer, actually, their number one trend for 2022 prediction in their cloud State of the Cloud report, which is a must read and a must listen to. Indirect partnerships are becoming table stakes from day one for SaaS businesses. And then to complement that, the number two trend that they're pointing out is the cloud goes to marketplaces. And if you look at the top 10 performing companies in the cloud Bessemer Venture portfolio in their cloud index, they're all companies with huge marketplaces. And that's all about being where your buyers are. Your buyers are in market, they're in the marketplaces, so you need to be there.
Very insightful. Justin, Udi, anything else to add on in terms of your partner ecosystems and how you guys think about like the future and what that looks like?
Yeah, I think integration is the new innovation. And I've seen this firsthand multiple times, where the deeper you get embedded with partners, it gives you access to their audience. And that couldn't be an easier thing. Well, it could be easier, but it could be a better way of getting in front of other people's audiences than going to market with an integration. And I think, especially if you're competing against a platform play, being able, like, that's your David versus Goliath move, is to be really tight and have an API friendly framework. And yeah, I think Jill already said this, but if there's a chance you're at risk in someone's tech stack, being tightly integrated with the rest of that tech stack is a great way to keep your spot safe.
Can I just say one thing? Instead of integration is the new innovation, integration is the new co-innovation. And if we think about co-innovating, co-developing our products, co-marketing, co-selling, and co-delivering incremental value to our customers, I just think today it's never go alone, partner to win. And it's all about co-innovation, co-develop, co-sell, co-market.
To add to everything that was just said here by Jill and Justin, I think it's all about providing a better customer experience. Our customers don't want to switch between 20 tools in the middle of their day. They don't want to punch in the same data into 3 different systems. I mean, gone are the days when we would accept those customer experiences. We've all been spoiled by consumer companies like Google and Amazon that make things easy for us, Apple, of course, and others. And everyone's expecting that in the B2B world. At Gong, we already have more than 100 integrations in our collective of integration partners, and we now have a waiting list. We're getting several a day that are asking to integrate with us because their customers are asking for it. They're like, I want to see this information in Gong, and I want to see Gong information in some other system, and I just want it all to be orchestrated and work together seamlessly and beautifully. Gone are the days when customers took upon them to create all these integrations and hack systems that they bought out of the box that didn't play nicely together. Now they're expecting us vendors to do all this work up front, and the ones who are winning are the ones that can offer something and say, this is already out of the box, integrated with everything you use. There's nothing left for you to do. What could be more compelling than that?
Yeah, spot on. And Udi, you at Gong, you guys have just done an incredible job of creating this community of raving fans. And outside of integrations, like, what are some other tips and other things that you're doing at Gong to just continue to stay ahead of the game and truly create raving fans? So
I love that you know that term, because it's our number one operating principle, is create raving fans. And when people ask me about how we built the Gong brand around that, I said, look, brand is way too important to leave it to marketing. Brand is what people say about your company when you're not in the room, and it requires that every employee do their part to create raving fans if that's what you're going to focus on. It can be the support engineer, it can be a R&D person, a customer success person, or a salesperson, or a recruiting coordinator who are creating a raving fan experience. So when we get letters of thanks from candidates who ended up not getting an offer, but they're thanking us for their candidate journey and how they would still love to work for us one day, we know that we've created a raving fan. When someone is having trouble with something on our website and someone tags an executive like me, this happened this morning. We had a little snafu on some landing page, and I immediately answered this RevOps professional. So they're not used to getting a LinkedIn DM from a C-level executive, but I want to correct the problem that he had and just make it a raving fan experience. And when you add up thousands of moments like this throughout the years, that's how you create a brand that is known for creating raving fans. It's not the marketing stuff. It's not the content. It's not the logo. It's not the screaming bulldog on the website. It's all of these moments put together.
It's awesome. Justin, Jill, anything else to add on, when you're thinking about creating this community of raving fans?
I think it's one of those things, you need to make a deliberate investment in it. It's not, and I think you made a really good point of it. It's not just marketing, it's every single thing. But I also think it's, so much of it comes from your people and your culture, and that's everybody's job. And it's also kind of nobody's job. And it's one of those things that's so hard to weave into the DNA of a company. And I think Gong has done a phenomenal job of that. But I also think that you need to be comfortable spending against it as well. And that's one of those things that, can create some uncomfortable conversations. But I think these days, especially as competitive as it is, getting your brand and getting people to admire it is not always free. And you do need to take some risks in investing in it.
Yeah, I would add, customer advocacy, customer marketing. I think it's really critically important to invest in that. But I think we flip advocacy on its head and we say, in terms of getting customer advocates, the way that happens is by being the best advocate of your customers and being the best advocate for your customers. And so instead of, thinking about it, how do we get our customers to be our advocates? It's how do we rally our whole organization to be the best advocates of our customers?
Awesome. Justin, you guys have tons and tons of customers, and you've really shifted the way people think about, the approach and just the conversational approach to sales, and having a number of different sales motions within Drift. What areas of friction do you still see, or do you see becoming more relevant as we continue to move forward between really that friction between buyers and sellers?
That's a good question. I think among people in this chat room, we think that being able to connect to a seller or a buyer right away is a foregone conclusion. I see it so much, especially since being here at Drift, that it's just not the case. So many companies get in their own way when trying to connect with their buyers, and that's exactly what they want. They want immediacy. They want what they want when they want it. And I'm sure this has happened to you, but this has recently happened to me. You've suddenly got a need. Like what tech or what vendor can help you fix it. You fill out a form and you just wait. And it's, there's probably some kind of marketing ops things happening in the background. There's some, Rube Goldberg mousetrap series of workflows in Salesforce happening that works for the business, but not for the buyer. And for me, seriously, if it's not back in my inbox, if I don't have hey, let's get on the phone in 5 minutes, I start searching for who else is out there. And 5 minutes is all it takes for someone to go from like a one call close to a competitive scenario where I'm no longer like a super easy sell. And I think there's a really big overlap too between the companies that you want to work with and the companies that make it easy to buy. And if you can nail both of those things, then you win every time. And I feel like, Udi, that's one thing that Gong has completely nailed. I think you guys have emerged as the category leader in a pretty competitive category, but you do a really good job of making sure you capture every ounce of demand that you've generated. And I think that's the thing that we're missing out on because we get in our own way too much.
I agree.
Well, yeah, it really hits on the theme of, just trying to make this simpler to buy, and capitalizing on those moments and how much research is already done at that point when they are filling out that form. And it's like, I'm almost to the point where I'm ready to do business, and you don't respond. Okay, I'm gonna go on. I know there's another 100 of similar type companies, and capitalizing on that is.
And so much of and this COVID accelerated the hell out of this, but so much of the buyer's journey is done online, right? Like there's no more meeting at trade shows. There is a little bit, but it's less. I don't know if it'll ever be the way it was. That your entire digital experience matters because that's pre-sales at that point, right? And they raise their hand when they already are an informed buyer, and it's an easy job not to sell, but to guide at that point. And if you can make that easier, it's only going to be good for your business. But that's where marketing's taking a much bigger sales seat than they have before, I think.
Absolutely. So what areas, as we think about just areas that, additional areas that are ripe for disruption, just open it up. Where do we see additional areas for disruption, and how do we make sure that we stay ahead of them?
I would like to replay Jill's tirade about partnerships. I think partnerships is the biggest way to disrupt, especially if you're going against a bigger player, because you have very smart, nimble companies that are working together to create a unique solution that, larger companies will take them, quarters and quarters to get to. And I think it also increases mutual, product adoption. So I am now a disciple of the Church of Rowley and saying, okay, it's co-integration, it's co-innovation, it's co-marketing, it's co-everything.
Yeah, and co is community. I'm so bullish on community, and not every company should or could build a community, but your customers are already part of other communities. And so it's really about, getting intelligence from the customer and the community at large and plugging into that. I actually read a story of a company that They started right around COVID. They were building an analytics product in the HR space. And during that time, HR was not investing in the product that they were building. And so they put a pause on the product and said, instead, we're going to build a community of CHROs who are in high growth startups. And they did it not to then sell a product. They actually did it to listen to what CHRs were struggling with and to see what the priorities were. And through that, they were able to actually build a different product than they had originally set out to do, because they heard the things that CHRs really wanted. And building a community, it's really, really freaking hard. And you have to dedicate the right resources to have the right mindset. And at the board level, it can't be okay, what are the leads we're getting from our community? That's not going to fit into your attribution model. And so really thinking just through the lens of how can we provide value to not just our customers or our prospective customers, but to the community at large. It happens to start with the CEO as well.
Yeah, big plus one on the community. That's something that's going really well for us at Gong, and because customers want to talk to each other and learn from each other how they're getting the most out of the product. Sometimes they don't want to speak to a CSM or salesperson, but actually a peer of theirs. And if you can make that happen online and in person, then you've created a community, making it much harder for them to switch. And then the last thing I would add is that I think what's always going to be ripe for innovation is who can provide the better customer experience. How do you make sure that your team is selling the way your customers want to buy? Don't make them fill out 20 forms. Don't make them fill out the same information or answer the same questions to the website form and then the SDR and then the AE. If you can pre-qualify them on the website, send them straight to the AE. Skip the SDR. Don't ask them questions you could have done the research ahead of time. If something's on their LinkedIn profile, you should be ashamed of yourself for asking the customer, why did you not check my LinkedIn profile? And salespeople are not all still doing that. And I think it goes back to what I said. The customer expectations have changed. We're used to the vendors that we buy from getting to know us and personalizing their offerings. Don't ask me a bunch of silly questions where all the information is out there in the public domain.
Not even just the LinkedIn profile, but take it a step further, right? If I want to know more about you, Jeremy, I'm going to go do a Google search on Jeremy Wadham podcast, video, quote. And so I'm going to go, now that hopefully more and more salespeople are leveraging the power of LinkedIn and doing the research on the LinkedIn profile, take it to, I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to the podcast. I send a very personalized note to connect, basically referencing the great points that the person made on the podcast. You can do the same with this session, right? If you're going to reach out to Udi or Justin, take a point that they made and reference that in your LinkedIn invite. Do not send a generic invite. There's so much information out there beyond even LinkedIn. Go listen to a freaking podcast and hear what's important to Udi. Differentiation, 100%. Right? Don't be better, but be different. Udi talks about that all the time. Go listen to that and send that to Udi, right? Come on.
Someone's been listening to her podcast.
Every day.
Retweet Jill again. I think that is, if you're a seller and you're listening to this, it is no longer a volume game. You can't play a volume game and win anymore. Take that time you were using to sequence people and do the research and try and make them. If my business is important to you, prove it up front, please.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We have a few minutes here on the topic of community. When is the right time? Each of you have been successful in launching a community. When is the right time? Is it in year one? I know it's a bit of a loaded question, but when's the right time to truly launch a community?
I think in Jill's example, it's T minus 1 year almost, right? It's, a community can start, but I think it's never too early. And I've seen a lot of examples of communities becoming a product before it was a product. So I think if you've got, what greater place to identify your audience too, than to find like-minded people that have the same issues. And I think Udi said this too, you can learn so much from that community that you wouldn't have been able, no number of surveys and focus groups would have told you, other than you being a fly on the room in the conversations that are being had when you're, kind of not actively involved in it.
Yeah, I would add to that maybe look at it a little bit differently than what Justin said, where it's never too early. I think the only point where it is too early is if you're not yet sure who are the people you want to engage and what do they want to engage with each other about. I'll give you an example. at Gong, we sell primarily to sales leaders, very, very senior leaders who buy Gong for their team. Yet when we were going deep into how we're going to build a community and who we're going to build it for, we realized that as much as we'd like to see these senior sales leaders talk to each other all day about how they're using Gong, they're probably not going to do that because they're too far removed from it in the day-to-day. And while they are the economic decision makers and buyers, they're not the ones tweaking it and using it all day. If you look at big successful communities like Salesforce's Trailblazers, who are the people in the community? They're not the VPs of sales or the CROs, they're the admins. Those are the ones who are passionate about creating fields and workflows and tweaking it. So that's kind of how we modeled our community after. We're talking to the frontline managers and to the admins and the people who actually are knee deep into the system all day. So that's work that you really have to do. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure or disappointment, because if you're going after the economic buyer that you want to see in there, but they don't have nothing to discuss with each other around your system, then that's probably not the way to go. So just really honing in on who's the persona that actually wants to discuss with each other. And this is how they solve problems. If they're looking for a piece of code to better work your product, or some cheat or hack, then who are the people who are actually doing this, or base your community on something else, right? But really understanding what kind of conversations you want to trigger and then getting the right people in there, that's going to be key to the success of the community. I think we've all been invited into one too many Slack communities of a hodgepodge of people that were discussing random things until we muted it and went on with our lives because we didn't feel that this was a good use of our time. So there's ways to not create that yourself.
Yeah, I don't think Slack is a community. I think it's a channel. And that isn't really like creating this vibrant community where there's content that is searchable. There's peer matching. There's all sorts of like community. We're going to see community tech. Like we have too much tech, but we're going to see community tech come into play. Just like we're seeing an explosion in partner tech and ecosystem tech. Yeah, and I think community is not just your customers, right? It's not just your users. It's the ecosystem of folks who are involved around the problem that you're trying to solve. And so make sure that community is, and you've got to know what your community goals are. You really have to have this investment, this commitment that community doesn't build itself. I would look at building the business case for a community, right? Build the business case and figure out why you're doing this, and what the mission is of it, and what the guiding principles are going to be. And but first, go out and be in communities that the people that you're trying to connect are already in. Go be in the community. Awesome.
We're closing out here with the final few minutes here. Let's just do kind of final parting thoughts from each of you as we, again, think about what's next for modern sales.
I'll go. I think it is in every way a buyer's market if you're in tech right now, right? They're leading the charge. Their expectations are whose need to be met. They're not going to follow your prescriptive buyer's journey. You just need to do everything you can in service of them and their journey.
Yeah, I would say value, right? What is the customer value? And one of the words I use a lot, and I used it on the Reveal podcast to define sales, is context. And you have to put everything in the context of the customer, and on multiple layers of the customer: industry, size, buyer persona, human drive, desire, whatever it is, but context. So be very contextual and be differentiated.
Yeah, the last thing I was add is just make every second with a human being in your sales process meaningful. We've done away with many professions and stages in buying things as consumers. We buy things online now that we never imagined we'd buy a couple of years ago. And software sales are going in the same direction. If the humans do not add value to the sales process, maybe cut them out. You might be surprised. We did that for our customers wanting to add licenses to their already existing Gong installation. We've seen millions in revenue from self-service in a product that we never thought would work that way. So test these things. And if you still think that the humans add value to the process, make sure they're adding value that could not be captured in an online form or some auto intake, because if it can, then that's what people are going to prefer anyway.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Justin, Jill, Udi, I can't thank you all enough. Like I said at the start of this, I wish this was a 3-hour podcast because we hit on a lot of topics of partners and the ecosystem and simplifying the buying process and communities, and all of those, quite frankly, could be 3-hour conversations themselves. So thank you for taking time out of your day to give us some additional insight. I hope for everyone like myself, there's some nuggets here to just go spark some conversations with your teams and just get those going and get the juices flowing. So thank you for the insight. Awesome session.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, everyone.